Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. We were supposed to be doing routine maintenance. Wrench was halfway into the guts of the engine block, grease up to her elbows, humming something off-key through a half-chewed pen cap. Beans was complaining about the coffee again, as if it tasted any better outside the wire. Trigger sat on the tread with a Snickers and a smug look, kicking his boots like we had nowhere to be. And I was reading the briefing packet for the third time, trying to figure out why they suddenly wanted a full tank crew standing by for a reactive deployment drill. No warning, no context, just orders. That was the first weird thing. The second came through the base-wide intercom. Attention all personnel. Shelter in place is now in effect. All units report readiness. This is not a drill. Everyone froze. I looked at Wrench. She looked at me. And for maybe 2 seconds, nobody said a word. Then came the gunfire. Short bursts at first, like someone clearing a weapon or dropping warning shots. But it kept going, kept getting closer. I grabbed my radio and keyed in. Ops, this is Reaper 2. We're hearing live rounds near the barracks. What the hell is going on? Static. Then, infected personnel. Maintain perimeter. Do not allow contact. Headshots only. That last part, that's when the pit opened in my gut. Trigger blinked. Headshots only. I was already climbing into the tank. We rolled out slow at first. No one gave a clear green light, but it didn't matter. We could see smoke rising over the housing units. People running, screaming, and something else. Movement that wasn't right. Too fast, too erratic. Like someone sprinting through a nightmare with no brakes. Jesus, Wrench muttered, eyes on the forward screen. They're eating each other. Beans leaned into his scope. That guy just bit Sergeant Keller, bit through his arm. He's still chewing. Holy shit, he's still... Focus, I snapped. We reached the outer motor pool fence and pulled up short. The base's emergency response unit had formed a firing line across the main lot. 10 soldiers in full gear, weapons drawn, trying to hold back what looked like dozens of infected troops and MPs. Some of them still wore PT gear. Some had half their damn faces missing. One of them lunged into the line, took 2 rounds to the chest, and kept moving. Then his head snapped back, and he dropped. Trigger exhaled, low and sharp. Headshots. They weren't joking. My radio crackled again. All armored crews are authorized for live deployment. Repeat. All armor cleared for defensive engagement. Hold the west gate. Prevent breakout at all costs. Wrench, forward, trigger, get me main gun ready. Beans was still frozen, knuckles white on the loader's brace. I leaned back, met his eyes. You good? He nodded once, swallowed. Yeah, yeah. We rolled out, turret rotating as trigger aligned with the gate. The line was breaking. Some of the ERU guys were running, others getting dragged down screaming. And then they came for us. First one, then 5, then a swarm. "Clear to fire," I said. Trigger didn't hesitate. Boom! The main gun lit up the night like a second sun. The blast shredded through the crowd, sending pieces flying. The infected didn't run. They didn't duck. They just kept coming, pouring through the smoke like they didn't even notice the explosion. "Reaper 2 engaging," I called in. "West Gate breach. We're holding." I didn't know if anyone was listening. We spent the next 60 seconds turning meat into mist. Every round was a godsend. Every delay in the autoloader was a death sentence almost knocking. Trigger cursed between shots. Wrench kept us moving, turning slow and steady to give us angle. Beans found his rhythm, feeding shells, face pale but locked in. We were a goddamn fortress on treads, and still, it wasn't enough. Because for every one that dropped, 3 more took their place. Then, from the smoke, a figure in uniform, waving us down, uninfected, bleeding. I cracked the hatch just enough to hear him over the engine noise. "Command post is gone," he shouted. "They turned inside the TOC. Everyone's dead." I looked back at my crew. No one said a word. The apocalypse hadn't just arrived. It was already inside. I don't remember who gave the order. Might have been me. Might have been instinct. But we rotated the turret, pulled a hard pivot, and headed straight toward the gate. Because that's where the line was breaking. "Trigger, switch to Cokes," I barked. "Copy, switching to 762. Bean slammed the hatch shut above us, just as something thudded against the side of the turret. A face, barely recognizable as human, smeared blood across the viewport before slipping off like wet paint. Wrench gunned the throttle. I could feel the tank groan as we rolled straight into the pack. It was like driving through bone and jelly. The infected didn't scatter, didn't react, just thumped off the armor like they didn't care they were getting crushed. Some even climbed, grabbed hold of the metal plating and tried to pry into the tank, like they thought we were just another meal. I watched one of them punch the barrel with a broken wrist, snarling like a dog with rabies. Then trigger opened up. The coaxial machine gun ripped a path straight through them, heads bursting like watermelons, shoulders vanishing in sprays of red mist. The whole world turned to noise, recoil, smoke, and meat. I keyed the radio, trying to raise anyone. "This is Reaper 2. Gate is overrun. We're holding the breach, but we need..." Static. No response. The talk was really gone. Wrench turned us in a tight circle around the front gate, treads grinding corpses into the concrete. Something popped under the wheels. I didn't look. No time for that. We made another pass, chewing through anything that moved. I started seeing uniforms I recognized. Private Liu, Sergeant Collins, both gone, eyes white, faces shredded. They moved like they were already dead but hadn't gotten the memo yet. Trigger stopped firing for half a second. They're still warm, like they only just turned. "They did," I said. Then I saw it. An armored Humvee parked sideways at the checkpoint with its doors hanging open. Inside, one of the guards was moving. Barely, clutching his stomach, face pale. "Injured friendly," I called. "Forward, get me 20 meters and hold." We stopped just shy of the wreck. I popped the hatch and stood up, wind knifing across my face. The base was a war zone, gunfire in every direction, the air stinking of cordite and rot. "Hey," I shouted, waving. "Can you move?" He looked up and lunged. No warning, no stagger, just instant rage. I barely got the hatch closed before he slammed into it, jaws snapping inches from my hand. Trigger was already swiveling the gun. "Don't waste it," I said. "I got something smaller." He drew his sidearm, aimed through the periscope, and fired once. Thump. The thing fell like a puppet with its strings cut. The gate was holding for now, but we could see more movement at the edge of the lot. A second wave, maybe third. Too many bodies to tell the difference anymore. I keyed in again. "Reaper 2 to any surviving units. We've secured the west gate. Requesting new orders or fallback position." Silence. Then a burst of static. "Fuel depot. Critical. Protect at all costs. They breached Sector Bravo." The depot. That was half a click southeast, past the barracks and maintenance sheds. If they got in there, if the fuel tanks cooked, it wouldn't be a base anymore, just a crater. "New plan," I said. "We reroute south, hold the depot. If we lose that, we're lighting our own funeral pyre." The way there was blocked, not by barricades, but by bodies. Hundreds of them, moving in waves, some dragging limbs, others sprinting full speed, all of them converging on the motor pool, the barracks, anything with a heartbeat. We couldn't shoot our way through, not without running dry. "Punch it," I told Wrench. "We're not taking the long way." "What if we throw a track? Then we die tired." "Go." She did. We plowed forward, tank treads climbing over wreckage and corpses, metal shrieking as something caught under the chassis. I heard Beans scream, then curse, and caught a glimpse of an infected on the hull, pounding on the turret. Trigger stood and shoved his rifle through the loader's hatch, emptied a magazine into its face point blank. The thing slumped over and slid off. Beans was panting. "Jesus, Jesus, I thought it had me." "You good?" He nodded, barely. By the time we reached the depot perimeter, we were leaking fuel and covered in gore. But we were still breathing. We parked sideways in front of the main gates, gun aimed down the access road. Lights flickered overhead. A few support staff were still inside. Mechanics, fuel techs, maybe 3 total. They stared at us like we'd just landed from Mars. I waved one over. "Shut it down. Lock everything. No one in. Not even us." He didn't argue. I turned back to my crew. "New orders," I said. "We hold this road. We don't let anything through, no matter what." Wrench adjusted her helmet. And after that, I looked down the length of the base, now half on fire. "Then we hold the next one." It started with a tank. An M1 from Charlie Company tore around the corner by the mess hall, treads screeching, turret sweeping left and right like it was hunting ghosts. The thing looked like hell. Smoke pouring from the exhaust. Side armor dented like it had rolled over something big and angry. No radio call, no IFF ping. It was heading straight for us. Reaper 2 to Charlie Actual. Identify immediately, I said. You are on approach to a secured fuel depot. Respond now. Nothing. Maybe comms are down, Beans offered, voice cracking. Trigger shook his head. They're not even trying to slow down. Load her up, I ordered. Beans reached for the next shell. Trigger, don't fire unless I say so. But if they breach this gate, I got you, he muttered. I got you. The tank kept coming. Still no lights, no friendly signals, just this metal beast crawling toward us like it had a mind of its own. I saw the driver's hatch, open, no one inside. Turret was moving, but the gunner was nowhere in sight. Wrench squinted through the periscope. Commander's cupolas covered in blood. How much blood? She looked at me. All of it. Load Sabbat, I said. Beans hesitated. Sir, that's loaded. He slammed it into place. Trigger swung the turret toward the oncoming tank. Still no response, still no brakes. Then, just as it reached the edge of the depot road, it fired. The shell missed us by inches, exploding into the tarmac and blowing a crater the size of a car behind our tail. Dirt and flame rained across the tank. Return fire, I shouted. Trigger pulled the trigger. Boom! Our shot tore straight through the enemy's front armor. The whole thing rocked back on its tracks and then, slowly, tilted left and collapsed into its side. Smoke poured from the breach. For a second, nobody said anything. We'd just killed one of our own. Maybe. Trigger's voice was low. There was no one inside that turret, just gore, like someone got shredded from the inside. Wrench blinked. Could the infected operate it? No way, I said. Not coordinated enough. That thing was moving with purpose. Beans leaned back in his seat. Then who the hell was driving it? No one answered. Radio chatter picked back up 2 minutes later. Multiple breaches near South Motor Pool. Friendly convoy returning from patrol. Unknown status. Proceed with caution. Another voice jumped in, ragged, panicked. We've got bitten soldiers still breathing. What are we supposed to do with them? Orders were to isolate, not shoot. I'm not murdering my guys, man. Then they're turning. They're turning right now. Gunfire, screams, silence. I looked at my crew. We're done waiting. We left the fuel depot behind, told the techs to barricade and pray. No one objected. Our new heading was South Motor Pool. We caught the tail end of it. 2 Humvees parked at odd angles, one with its doors hanging open. Soldiers were slumped around the perimeter, some twitching, some still. 2 were dragging a third behind a crate, shouting for help. The man being dragged had blood all over his chest. He was smiling, mouth red, eyes cloudy. Wrench slowed the tank. They don't know he's infected. I climbed halfway out of the hatch, waved both arms. Step away from him. They didn't hear me, or didn't care. One of them turned, just as the smiling man lunged, mouth wide. He bit the guy on the neck so hard I heard the crunch from 10 meters away. The second soldier raised his rifle, too slow. Trigger didn't wait. One burst from the cokes, and all three dropped in a tangle. We moved through the south lot like a funeral procession. Just us, just Reaper 2. We passed two more bodies slumped against a bunker wall, both shot in the head. Their sidearms were still in their hands, self-inflicted. Probably saw it coming. Trigger lit a cigarette inside the turret. No one told him not to. 10 minutes later, we got the last clear signal we'd ever hear from command. All remaining forces consolidate at the southern LZ. Extraction inbound. If you're alive, get there. Wrench adjusted the wheel. Helipad's near the rec field, right? 2 clicks, I said, but it's gonna be hot. Beans cracked his knuckles. We're gonna leave the tank. No, I said. We're gonna drive it right onto the field and dare anyone to stop us. Trigger grinned. We took the side roads, avoiding the barracks, which were now fully engulfed. Fire reflected off the tank's shell as we rolled past the chow hall. Someone had tried to make a stand there. Barricades of folding tables and cots, overturned chairs, blood everywhere. Wrench slowed. Behind us, something was moving through the flames. A shape, charred, barely human, crawling. Trigger rotated the turret toward it. Orders? I looked at it for a long second. Then I keyed in the command override. Boom. Ash rained down on the hull like snow. The first thing we saw at the LZ was a corpse hanging from a floodlight, uniform still on, boots dangling. His rifle was jammed in his mouth like someone forced it there. I didn't ask what happened. No one did. The helipad was a mess. Wrecked Humvees, shredded tents, spent casings everywhere. Smoke curled up from smoldering crates of medical gear. One lone UH-60 sat in the center, rotors dead still, tail bent like it had tried to land in the middle of a riot. And behind it, the survivors, maybe 15 of them. Half were wounded, most were barely armed. A few had that wide, vacant look I'd seen too many times already, like their souls had punched out hours ago and left their bodies on autopilot. Wrench eased Reaper 2 to a stop between the chopper and the tree line. Forming a wall, Trigger raised the barrel toward the south access road. Beans started reloading shells automatically, hands moving like he was afraid to stop. I keyed open the hatch and called down to the group. You waiting for evac? A woman in an Air Force uniform nodded. She looked like she hadn't slept in 2 days. ETA on the bird? She just stared at me. They said 10 minutes, 15 ago. We set up for a last stand, treads locked, turret rotating every 30 seconds, cokes loaded, main gun hot. We parked crates and Humvees around the pad to form a crude barricade, dragged the wounded behind the tank. Wrench stayed in the driver's seat. Trigger and Beans took turns on the turret. I stayed topside, rifle ready, scanning the tree line. And then we heard it. The moaning, low at first, like a breeze through a broken pipe. Then louder, dozens of voices, then more, coming from the woods. They're here, I said. They didn't pour out all at once. This wasn't a stampede. It was a tide, slow, steady, relentless, like the woods were bleeding bodies. First 1, then 5, then 50. Some of them was still in uniform. Others were missing limbs. One was naked, except for dog tags and a belt of grenades someone had tried to detonate. His chest was burned black, but he still walked. Beans muttered, "They're all coming here." "Because they know," Wrench whispered. "They know we're leaving." "Open fire." The perimeter erupted. The Cokes tore through the front ranks. Rifles cracked from behind the crates. A flare went up, bathing the field in blood-red light. The infected didn't flinch. They just kept coming, stumbling over the dead, crawling on hands and knees if their legs were gone. Trigger laughed, like a man on the edge. "Feeding time, motherfuckers." We held them for 5 minutes. 10. The bodies stacked so high they started acting like cover. The ones behind just climbed over them. We switched to HE rounds. Boom! A dozen bodies evaporated in a fireball. Limbs spun through the air like shrapnel. It bought us maybe 20 seconds. Then the tank started shaking. "Rear hatch," Wrench screamed. "They're crawling up the fenders." I dropped back in just as something slammed onto the cupola, fingers clawing at the hatch. Beans fired straight through the turret gap, and the thing disappeared. Another one slipped through the smoke and grabbed one of the wounded outside, dragged him backward into the dark. I fired twice. Too late. Radio flared again. "Inbound Black Hawk. 2 minutes. Mark LZ." I looked up. Red flares, fire everywhere, and still more infected. "Trigger!" I shouted. "You still with me?" "Burning through belts," he yelled, smoke curling from his jacket. "I'm a goddamn one-man firing squad." Beans had blood on his face and didn't even notice. Wrench's hands were glued to the controls, eyes wide. "New plan," I said. "We make a hole for the bird." We drove through them. Reaper 2 surged forward, treads chewing through flesh and asphalt. I climbed halfway out the hatch again and fired until my rifle clicked empty. Shell casings burned across my forearms. Something grabbed my ankle and I kicked it away without looking. We cut a line straight across the field, then rotated and did it again. Bodies broke against the hull like waves on a cliff. And then we heard it. Rotors. The Black Hawk came in fast and low, lights off, skimming treetops like it didn't want to be seen. It hovered 30 feet above the pad, and the survivors sprinted for it, limping, dragging others, screaming. I saw one guy try to climb in with bite marks all over his arms. The crew shoved him back out. He was torn apart before he hit the ground. We formed the wall one more time. Reaper 2 parked between the last group of survivors and the approaching horde. "Ammo check," I shouted. "2 Sabat, 3 HE, Beans called. Maybe 20 rounds left for the Cokes. Make 'em count." We held until the last boots were on the bird. Then a voice came over the radio, calm, clipped, professional. "Reaper 2, this is Talon 1. You're clear to extract. Move now." I looked at my crew. Trigger was reloading his pistol. Wrench was shaking. Beans was silent. We couldn't bring the tank, not without a flatbed. not with fuel leaking and half the armor hanging off. I keyed the hatch and opened it wide. Grab what you can, leave the rest. Trigger sighed. I'm gonna miss this ugly bitch. I won't, Wrench muttered, and kissed the console. We climbed out together and ran. As we lifted off, I looked down at Reaper 2, still parked, still pointed at the trees, still watching the line. And in the firelight, I swear I saw them stop just for a second. Like even the dead respected what that tank had done.